Hey, Assalamualaikum and good morning. Welcome to Taman Tugu and welcome to People Library. And I hope you're as excited as I am with the lineup that we have today. And as you might be aware, last year we had a similar session. We were privileged to have John Koh, who happens to be here. We had Glenn Yap. And this year we have a different round of speakers to speak on KL history. So I'm not going to hold it up, and I'm going to pass the mic to our first speaker, Abdur-Razzaq Lubis. Over to you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. The title of my talk is Sutan Puasa, founder of Kuala Lumpur. I'm the author of the book. I'm the author of the book of the same title. Good morning. Can you hear me? Right. Okay. The title of my talk is Sutan Puasa, founder of Kuala Lumpur. I'm the author of the work of the book. I have only one founder. I'm nominating only one founder. That is Sutan Puasa. Who founded Kuala Lumpur is an emotive and divisive issue, but it doesn't have to be so. Okay. Now this is the work of Wan Muhammad Amin, Wan Muhammad Said, a functionary of the Selangor government. He wrote this work in Jawi in 1920, and it was published in 1937, and subsequently transliterated into Romanized Malay and published as Pusaka Selangor. He was the first to exert that Raja Bullah, the Bugis chief from Riau, was behind the making of Kuala Lumpur. So I quote, and so Raja Bullah had obtained the authority to rule over Klang in Ulu Klang, that is KL and its vicinity, and also had the authority to transport the Chinese to open tin mines in Ulu Klang and made the town of Kuala Lumpur. In Malay, menjadikan Bandar Kuala Lumpur. But Raja Abdullah still resided in Klang, that is in Pangkalan Batu. Pangkalan Batu was the old name for Klang. He didn't elaborate how Raja Abdullah, the Bugis chief, menjadikan Bandar Kuala Lumpur. Just a one-liner. And this was paraphrased by R.O. Winstead, the doyen of Malay Studies, when he wrote A History of Selangor, published by the Journal of Malaysian Branch, Royal Asiatic Society. And Winstead wrote A History of Selangor based on the work of Wan Muhammad Amin. And I quote, Raja Abdullah had been given charge of Klang by Sultan Muhammad, had introduced Chinese, opened in mines upriver, that's better, upriver, that is in KL, and though he himself lived in Pangkalan Batu, had founded Kuala Lumpur and was collecting a large revenue. So Winstead rendered menjadikan Bandar Kuala Lumpur to founded Kuala Lumpur. This was in 1930s. Then the next work by Middlebrook and Gulick. So most of the stuff that we know about Yap Aloy came from this short history of Yap Tek Loy, narrated by his under Hugh Fat. It's based on Chinese sources, but the Chinese sources are lost. It was deposited in the Raffles Museum, I think Raffles Museum, or Raffles Library in Singapore, but it is now lost. Only the English version survived in translation, okay? And this was written in 1953, I think. Okay, about Yu Shu. Yu Shu was the first Kapitan Cina of Kuala Lumpur. Quote, no doubt he assumed the title of Kapitan Cina with the assistance of Sutan Puasa. As the first arrival, that means the first Chinese arrival in the settlement, in bracket, if not the founder, question mark, he could claim to be the natural head man of the Chinese. So Middlebrook posed a question: if not the founder? Question mark. He had doubts. Okay, he didn't suggest that Hugh Hsu was the founder of Kuala Lumpur. Nor did he suggest that Lim Yu Ngong, the second Kapitan China was the founder. What more Yap Aloy? So as far as I'm concerned, it's a non-issue. Because Middlebrook never proposed Yap Aloy as the founder of Kuala Lumpur. And by the way, the work on Yap Aloy, the family of Yap Aloy actually pieced it together, put it together because they wanted to claim that Yap Aloy built Kuala Lumpur. They wanted to make a claim to the government. So it was all about money. The first Chinese trader to arrive at Ampang was called Yap Yu Siu. He was accompanied by his friend RZ, most usually known as RZ Klede or sweet potato RZ. While in Lukot, they had supplied goods to the Mandailing trader called Sutan Puasa, who blah blah blah. Okay, so Sutan Puasa had business dealing with Hugh Hsu and RZ Klede, and it was Sutan Puasa who invited Hugh Hsu and RZ Klede to come to Ampang and prospect for tin, and they eventually did. They opened up mines in Ampang in, I think, 1857. But they set up shop at the confluence of the river and was wrongly interpreted as founding Kuala Lumpur. Okay, Middlebrook never said that Hugh Hsu founded Kuala Lumpur. Okay, this is the work of Malay nationalist Haji Buyung Adil, Sejarah Selangor, written in 1971. And he formulated his thesis, if you like, and made Raja Abdullah the protagonist based on the work of Middlebrook. I won't read it to you, but basically his conclusion is that he argues that since Raja Abdullah opened the mines in Ampang and selected the banks, the spot at the junction of the Klang and Gombak rivers, that Raja Abdullah should rightly be styled the man who founded Kuala Lumpur, not Yap Aloy, who came to Kuala Lumpur in 1862. There's no basis for this. There's no ground for this. He has no legs to stand on because Raja Abdullah never set foot in Kuala Lumpur. He was based in Pangkalan Batu or Klang. Okay, the latest claim is by this, some describe it as a Malay right-wing group, the Patriots. They claim that Abdullah Hukum founded Kuala Lumpur. Abdullah Hukum actually founded Kampung Abdullah Hukum that is still extant. And you know, your LRT terminal, Abdullah Hukum is named after him. And then he's a Kerinci chief. Okay, what we have to understand is that at that time in the 19th century, there's no such thing as MCI. You know what MCI is? Melayu, Cina, India, Malay, Chinese, Indian. So these are distinct ethnic groups. The Mandalings are distinct from the Minang are distinct from the Kerinci, the Malays are distinct from the rest of the Nusantara groups. So the MCI was introduced by the British in the 1930s when they reconstructed the ethnic identities for the census. Okay, the question of the founder. I won't go into the semantics, but in Malay it's membuka negeri, to open up, or buka negeri, to open settlement. Okay, you can also say that a founder is the establisher, the originator, the builder, the benefactor, and so on and so forth. Okay, the Mandalings has a tradition of mamungka huta, or the same as buka negeri, opening the country for the purposes of establishing a dominion, mendirikan harajaon. Okay, as a Mandarin word, Mandiri is a Malay word, but harajaon is a Mandarin word. Okay, the anthropologist Tagbi, who studied Mandalings, the Mandalings for a decade or so, has this to say about Mamungka Huta, the opening of settlement. The new settlements are normally created by a member of the elite Raja family from the old country or natal settlement, that is from Mandailing, who leads a band of followers from a large settlement to a new site. When he does so, he takes the customary law with him. Customary law is adat. The new settlement is tied symbolically, politically, and by kinship to the old. In this way, the mother-child village complexes are created. Now, the Mandailings migrated to the peninsula at the height of the Padri War, which erupted in Mandailing from 1803, not just Mandailing, central Sumatra, covering Minangkabau, Mandailing, Angkola, Padang Lawas, Sipurok, all the way to the east coast of Sumatra. So this war began in 1803 and concluded in 1840s. So arguably it was longer than the Aceh War, the Dutch War in Aceh, and it impacted Mandailing. And consequent to this, Mandailings migrated in large numbers. The most monumental migration of the Mandailing took place in this period, where hundreds, thousands of Mandailings resettled to the peninsula. They could have gone to Aceh or Palembang, but they didn't, because they have foreknowledge of the peninsula, and the peninsula was sparsely populated. Also, there were earlier Mandailing migrants to the peninsula, so they have this background knowledge. Okay, most historians of Kuala Lumpur assume that the trading post did not exist before the arrival of Raja Abdullah. Yusuf, that is the first Captain China, and Aziz Kledek, his partner, and that it rose from obscurity after the success of Chinese mining, either by Raja Abdullah Kulis or Sutan Puasa's Chinese friends. Okay, Yusuf, Aziz Kledek, and even Yap Aloy is Sutan Puasa's Chinese friends and business partners. Okay, the eyewitness account of Kerinci, of the Kerinci Abdullah Hukum, as narrated in Warta Ahad in 1930s, testifies that Kuala Lumpur already existed and was governed by Mandarins long before the arrival of the Chinese. Okay, I have to point out many of the indigenous accounts are from the 1920s or 1930s. Bear in mind that the account, the biography of Yap Aloy by Middlebrook and Gulick was only published in 1953. So, and there's another account which I am not, I've not used in this presentation, is that by Wan Abu Bakar. It's also in Jawi, but you will find it in the book. Otherwise, I will exceed my 30 minutes. Okay, so this subsequent account is from Abdullah Hukum. Remember, he's a Kerinci. Okay? The non-Malays may like to see him as a Malay. Okay, he doesn't see himself as Malay. Okay? They are the Kerincis are matrilineal. He arrived first in Kuala Lumpur in 1850. So Kuala Lumpur was already there in 1850. He said it was already a thriving two-street settlement. Okay. He noted that, quote, Kuala Lumpur at the time was busy in the way of the old days. There were two lanes, namely the present Java Street and Market Street. So you have a Chinese quarter and the Sumatran quarter. While Ampang Street, Jati Lane, as some of you would know, which is bustling today, that means 1930s, was still a fish pond belonging to the late Sutan Puasa. So Sutan Puasa has died, but his fish pond was still there in 1930. The shop houses at the time were made of bertam, thatch, and woven bamboo walls. and the traders operating there, selling textiles and foods, were all Malays. Okay, this was a period, I have to explain the term Malay here. 1930s, the British introduced the pro-Malay policy because during the closer. I thought I'm loud enough. Okay, during their wash, the Malays, became a minority in the country. They were outnumbered by the Chinese by the millions. So they introduced this pro-Malay policy, and through the census, they reclassified us. There was a category of Mandailing. There was a Mandailing category in the census up to 1930s, and then they obliterated it. And so they had to enter ourselves as Malay. And in spite of that, the census manipulation, the Malays now, which included the Sumatran, the Bugis, and others, were still in the minority. Okay, all the Malays, he qualifies, that is Rawa and Mandailing, under the leadership of Sutan Puasa and Raja Billah. Both these leaders collected taxes on the trade passing through the Klang and Gombak rivers. I will comment about the Gombak River a bit later. Okay, Abdullah Hukum emphatically states that when he arrived in Kuala Lumpur, the community lived together peacefully under the Mandailing leadership. In short, the Mandailings were in charge of Kuala Lumpur before the Klang War. At that time, there were no troubles in Kuala Lumpur. All the Malays lived in peace, and their bosses were all Mandailings. So I reproduced, that's the translation into English, and the Malay is below. You can actually get this work. It was published in translated, but now it's of course hard to come by. Okay, Raja Akom was the son of Raja Billah. Remember, Raja Billah is one of the leaders of the Sumatran community in Kuala Lumpur. Okay, he wrote in Tarikh Raja Asal, written in 1930s. Puasa, Jalila, Jasuman, Haji Abu Majid, and Raja Dori were some of the leading Mandailing merchants in Kuala Lumpur who sold their tin as far as Melaka to the Chinese buyers. So at the time, Raja Dori was the leader in Kuala Lumpur before the emergence of Sutan Puasa. So the Mandailings migrated en masse in large numbers about 1830s. Okay, I'm one of the descendants of those early migrants. In other words, we were on the scene before the arrival, before British intervention. So I'm really 6th, 7th generation. So Raja Dori was the leader of the Mandailings at that point in time, because I think Sutan Puasa came a bit later. All right, there is some controversy about whether Sungai Lumpur or this place named Lumpur exists. This is a page from John Anderson. He was the first European to visit the interior, and he listed the place names in Upper Klang. Upper Klang is Kuala Lumpur area, and including Upper Klang today. He mentioned 8 feeder points for tin, observing that at all these places, tin is obtained but most at Lumpur. Note the place name Lumpur, okay, at the very bottom. Sungai Lumpur. So Sungai Lumpur does exist, but it will transform into something else again. Okay, this is the earliest map showing Kuala Lumpur. You can see S Lumpur. Can you see it now? And Fort Lumpur. And Fort Lumpur, I think. Yeah. Okay. At this point in time, at the start of the Klang War, the British had a very vague idea about the interior, because the British were in a straight settlement, and they had to rely on informants, and they got embroiled in the Klang War by proxy. So Tunku Pudin of Kedah was the proxy. Okay, Fazli knowledge about, huh? Yeah, okay. Where were we? Yeah. So there you are, the earliest known map of Kuala Lumpur. Okay. Right. I'm showing you this map. If you can see, it's on the right. Sungai Batu and Sungai Gombak, Sungai Kelang. Can you see it? Do I need to stand up and show it to you? Okay. Do I have a? Okay, there. At the top there. Kuala Lumpur. You see? Sungai Batu, Sungai Gombak, Sungai Kelang. Can you see it? Okay. Remember Sungai Lumpur? Became Sungai Batu. Okay. Oops. I'm running out of time. Okay. This is the sketch. Sungai Gombak is actually a tributary of Sungai Batu. So Sungai Batu flow all the way down where it meets Sungai Kelang. So it becomes Kuala Lumpur. But actually the Kuala Lumpur was called Pangkalan Batu. Pangkalan Lumpur, sorry. Pangkalan Batu is Kelang. So that's three documents from the Middlebrook papers which I have. Sultan Abdul Samad wrote to Tunku Pudin and another letter to Yap Aloy where he used the term Pangkalan Lumpur. Okay, I'm running out of time. Okay, this is a sketch made by Sutan where he pinpoints Malay Raja's house on the hill. The Malay Raja on the hill is probably referring to the Bukit Nanas stockade. That's where Sutan Puasa lived, okay, in the stockade. So there was a stockade, and then around it there were villages. And during the Kelang War, they all moved into the stockade. Okay, that Malay Raja is Sutan Puasa. Okay, there was another settlement, Kampung Rawa, named after the Rau people from Sumatra. Okay, it's bounded by this Ampang Street, then became High Street. And the Sutan Puasa pond was between Ampang Street and High Street, I think north of Java Street. And the Sutan Puasa stockade. Okay, let me get to that. Okay, this is Kampung Rawa. But this is an extension of Kampung Rawa. Okay, Sutan Puasa also lived here. I think after the war. Okay, another this we reproduced this in the Sutan Puasa book. It is recovered, found in the Middlebrook papers. One of the earliest, but this is 1882 to 1884. This one is from 1875 to 78. Okay, just after the war. Okay, Kulik noted. Kulik is the foremost authority on Kuala Lumpur. The traditional seat of Malay authority in Kuala Lumpur was a stockade, originally built in 1860s on Bukit Nanas, and known after the Civil War as Sutan Puasa Stockade, from the Malay headman who had once occupied it. Of course, Sutan Puasa is no Malay. He's a Mandailing. And the stockade, okay, you see that ground for Catholic Church? That's the shape of a fort. There's no blind spot. It's five-sided. Sutan Puasa's residence was in there. And then there were, where the Istana, they eventually built the Istana for Sultan Abdul Samad, but he was disinterested to live in Kuala Lumpur among all these alien Sumatrans. He's Bugis, okay? Right, okay, the rest you can read. I just want to point out Sutan Puasa. He never stayed there. When he visited Kuala Lumpur, I think he stayed with Ya Aloy. Okay, as a young leader, Sutan Puasa, I help. From now on, I will just read. As a young leader, Sutan Puasa helped the village elders develop Kuala Lumpur into an important center for trade. He opened new lands using wage labor and let them out to mining tributes, offering them cash and food advances to tide them over the first lean years until the crop was harvested or the mines proved productive. Sutan Puasa also helped to maintain law and order and fortify the trading settlement. Most of this is summarized or based on Abdullah Hukum's account. Sutan Puasa excelled as a trader, an agricultural pioneer, a mining entrepreneur, and a sort of general contractor for the community. As a trader, Sutan Puasa took his stint to Malacca, stopping at Lukut, where he made friends with some Chinese merchants, traders. He developed a communal fish pond, that's the pond. In Mandarin language, it's called Tobat. Somewhat larger than usual, in a large rice field to reflect his status as a Mandailing nobleman. So Sutan Puasa is a nobleman. Sutan Puasa developed Kuala Lumpur and its surroundings by commissioning the construction of infrastructure such as irrigation canals, bunds, and other amenities. What is now Tapak was the headwaters of the Tapak River, as it was called. This is, I think, a quote from Abdullah Hukum. And Upper Gombak, now known as Air Panas. It was Sutan Puasa who opened rice fields in those areas. So not only he developed Kuala Lumpur, he also developed the hinterland around Kuala Lumpur. What is that? I remember taking wages, Abdullah Hukum says, I remember taking wages to make irrigation canals in Segambut, now Batu Lima Stapa, and also in other places, working for Sutan Puasa, you see. He hired, this Abdullah Hukum, remember, he's a Kerinci, working for Mandailing. In the eyewitness account, Abdullah Hukum exerts that the Chinese presence in Kuala Lumpur was rather insignificant. Even when Yap Aloy became the third Kapitan Cina of Kuala Lumpur in 1868, he wrote, okay, I need not read it. You have to read it. Okay, before the emergence of Sutan Puasa, I've already spoken about Raja Duri. Okay, Sutan Puasa also played a mediating role, okay, among the different ethnic groups. Among the Mandarin, Sutan Puasa had the most dealings with the Chinese, both politically and commercially. He was an investor and a business partner of key Chinese entrepreneurs such as Hu Shu, Aziz Lele, Liu Ngim Kong. That's the second Captain China. He also actually had a joint venture with Aloy. It has been said that Sutan Puasa became rich through financing Chinese mines in Kanching. There's an interesting story about Kanching, the Kanching massacre between the two Hakka groups involving the Mandailings. Sutan Puasa played a role in the appointment of all three Captain China, okay? Hu Shu, Liu Ngim Kong, and Yap Aloy. Introduced them to the Waris Negeri for permission to mine the ancestral lands, recommended them to Sultan Taman. I give an example of the mediating role. The fundamentals of a multicultural society was already established in Kuala Lumpur. What you have the Minangs, you have the Rawa, you have the Mandailings, you have many other ethnic groups. So it's not the creation of the British alone. Okay, MCI is not multi-racial. Okay, that's archaic and anachronistic. So the so-called Malays now perceived as Malays were far more complex. They practiced their own adat, they had their own law, LORE. They speak different languages, not dialects. Like the Mandarins, we even have our own script. We practice our own adat, and they probably communicated in broken Malay because they all have, and they live in separate areas, but they were comrades. Okay, in the social memory of the Mandarins, the Minangkabau or Kuala Lumpur, legends which was passed down from generation to generation. Sutan Puasa was the founder of Kuala Lumpur. Actually, I based my work on this, knowledge passed down that he was the founder. That prompted me to write the book on Sutan Puasa. He sided with those who lost the Klang War, and then still not loud, and then all that was built by him was snatched away, first by Aloy and then by the British. This was after the Klang War. The British actually made Yap Alloy the caretaker of Kuala Lumpur. When they moved the capital from Klang to Kuala Lumpur in 1880, Sutan moved in. Dato' Henry Balu will talk about that and take over everything. And the memory of Sutan Puasa was lost in all that, in colonialism. As winners of the Civil War, both Yap Alloy and Tugu seized the spoils of war and became the lords of Kuala Lumpur and Klang. However, as they were proxies of British interests, they were only the caretakers. Afterward, the British administration stepped in and said, "Thank you very much," to them. Right? So they appropriated, the Mendaling Fort, Bukit Nanas, everything, turned it into missionary schools, what have you, So these were all either belonging to the Mendalings or the Sumatrans. And that's erasing our social memory. And that's an injustice of colonialism. After the book, Yap Alloy by Middlebrook and Gulick was published in 1951. Okay, sorry, published in 1951, not 53. Yap Alloy became the subject of countless biographies. This was based on the work of Middlebrook, because he separated myth from history. Even Janet Carston, who the sinologist who study the Hakka, has an article from myth to history by Yap Alloy. The mythology of Yap Alloy as founder of Kuala Lumpur and as a hero was created by Chinese who chose to remain in Malaysia after Merdeka. Why are you going around, Johan? I'm coming to the end. Okay, after Merdeka, they had to, refashion themselves. Going back to China was not an option, so they have to have their hero. Then after Merdeka, Raja Abdullah was elevated as the founder of Kuala Lumpur by Malay nationalist historians when they wished to reclaim history for the Malays and overturn the colonial narrative. This misconception and fabricated myth were perpetuated by the Chinese and Malay respectively, without closer inspection and understanding of historical setting and evidence of that time. In writing Sutan Puasa, founder of Kuala Lumpur, I am rescuing the true noble, that is Sutan Puasa, the unsung hero from the shadow of history, ignored and neglected by colonial scholar bureaucrats. Sutan Puasa is deserving of remembrance for building Kuala Lumpur through years of endeavor, okay? As if we indigenous people, the native, we are incapable of building, of constructing, of being the prime mover, the builder, establisher, whatever. Okay, Sutan Puasa is deserving of remembrance for building Kuala Lumpur through years of endeavor to make a success of the settlement and river port, and finally for defending Kuala Lumpur in the Civil War, which the odds in which the odds were totally stacked against him. Okay, so Kuala Lumpur, Sutan Puasa made Kuala Lumpur viable. That's why the Bugis came, the Chinese came. Sorry. We all beloved Kuala Lumpur to Sutan Puasa's foresight, vision, and genius. The sole and exclusive merit for founding Kuala Lumpur goes to him. The authorities should not only declare Sutan Puasa as the founder of the nation's capital, if the Bugis are fair, and his contributions and achievement memorialized. The appropriate day should henceforth be known as Sutan Puasa Day, Hari Sutan Puasa, to acknowledge how we are proud of him. Of course, he couldn't have made it without the help of the other Sumatrans, with the Chinese. But we are talking about the founder, so I'm proposing there's only a sole founder, single founder. Okay, there you are. This is from my buddy and journalist, Datuk Lat. So there's a street name after Yap Alloy. There's not even a street name after Kuala Lumpur. There's a LRT station named Abdullah Hukum. Nothing to memorialize Sutan Puasa. And
Thank you very much. I hope all of you enjoyed that. So the whole idea is to be quick fire, just 30 minutes, make your point. So we're going to take a 10-minute break, and then we'll invite Salma. And at the end of it, there'll be a Q&A. Yeah. And actually, I meant to give a spoiler alert that someone told me that the Orang Asli were here first, the Temuans at Jalan Melaka. Anyway, we'll talk about it later. Thank you. Let's take a short break. Thank you.